Welcome to Life, Death, and the Law, presented by the law firm of Deason, Garner, and Hansen, hosted by attorneys Shawn Garner and Adam Hansen.
Welcome to Life, Death, and the Law. I'm Shawn Garner in studio with Cody Beeson, Adam Hansen, and Thomas Sparks. We are an estate planning firm. We do estate planning very well, but we like to talk about politics and our general everyday passion on the radio because it's fun. And this episode is going to be talking specifically about understanding the difference between having fun with your hobby, like what this is, talking on the radio and doing podcasts, and making a side hustle and thinking that it's going to be an investment that's going to pay dividends down the road, when in reality, you're probably just taking time away from your family or your main job, which is actually going to provide long-lasting economic security and joy. So we do this as a hobby. This is not our side hustle. And I want to talk, Adam, a little bit about things that you do. You had a recent acquisition. Tell us about that. It was exciting.
Why are you gonna bring this up like on air?
Because it's fun.
It's not fun. It's not a big deal. I bought an airplane, and it sounds like a big deal,
It's
but
a
it's
big
not
deal
a big deal.
when all of those insurance policies cash out.
Well, yeah, that's the hope. That's probably how I'm going to die. I've already resorted to that fact that this will be the end of me.
Uh-huh.
But at least it'll be a quick end, and that's good with me. I'd rather go quickly than long and drawn out. You know,
like Achilles.
like in a blaze of glory.
Yeah.
Kamikaze.
Hey, I'm with you.
Kamikaze. So anyway, yeah, it's not a big deal. It's like buying,
I was
it's like buying a
fishing
car.
for an invite to fly in your plane on Thursday when you're going to bring it home. Mm-hmm. And anyway, struck out.
No, yeah, you can come if you want.
Got
I
stumped
wouldn't.
on that one.
If I were you, I wouldn't come. Give me a little bit more time in that airplane.
What happened to the whole blaze of glory?
Well, it's going to be nighttime, and so I don't know.
Okay.
Night flight.
So you got a plane. You're excited?
I am very excited. It sounds like, oh, Adam, he's got a ton of money.
You finally
he
made
can go
it.
buy a plane. It's not a. This thing is a 1962 aircraft. Okay,
Uh-huh.
that's what it is, and it's less than your typical car you can buy.
Are you calling it Hansen 1 or what is it?
Yeah, that sounds great. I hadn't thought about that. Put that on the side of it as it goes down in a flame of glory.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, my journey to get my pilot's license came to an impasse recently. I've been using a flight school, and that flight school had a couple planes in it. When you say flight school, really, it's just, these people, they buy a couple airplanes, and then they let certified flight instructors take you up in them, and then you're logging your hours in those things. Well, the problem is they had two planes, and one of those planes was constantly down, and then the one plane that was available every once in a while, like there's so many people on the schedule trying to fly that plane, it was virtually impossible.
Have you ever ticked off your instructor, like scared the crap out of him, and he's like, land this thing now, or I'm taking the control?
Oh, yeah. And I mean, he doesn't say land this thing now, but he says there's a procedure that you go through, and meaning if they're like scared, then they'll say, I have controls, and I have to repeat, you have the controls.
How many times?
Oh, like 4. It's not that big.
And you want to go on the maiden flight.
One really serious one, I would say. One really serious one. The other one's like, it's fine.
I have
had it.
controls.
I got it. Okay, I got it. We were on the ground.
Did anybody have to change their pants when they got out of the airplane?
No. I mean, the instructors that I fly with, I mean, they're awesome, and they're so good at what they do. But I mean,
So what happened when you took the controls? Were you like dropping
I was
altitude
like,
fast?
power to you, dude. You got it.
Your barrel rolling.
One of these, so just shortly, and the pilots that are listening to this are like, you're an idiot. Yeah, that's why I'm reluctant to tell this story. But okay, this is my first time going into Somerton Airport. Somerton Airport is in Class D airspace, which is the base. There's this big radius around the base.
So is that the big dogs, Class D?
Class D is the big dogs. I mean, I'm like this little Cessna, on the thing, and then
Made in
next
1960.
to the Harrier, it's like, whoa. I'm like, hey, beep, 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 and there's like, whoa, taking off. So in that sense, it's awesome. I mean, it's just so awesome to be out there on the runway with these guys, these fighter pilots, and these big old Osprey and stuff like that. but at the same time, it's kind of intimidating, and you've got to talk to tower here at MCAS, and that's intimidating. Cody, you've been flying a lot too, and so that's probably the most intimidating thing or hardest thing is the radio controls, or not controls, but your dialogue back and forth tower. You've got to say certain things. They've got to say certain things to you, and you're always worried about messing up, and then they treat you stupid because you are. If you don't say it right. Anyway, so that's Class D airspace, heavily regulated. You have to have permission to get in Class D airspace. In Class D airspace, below it, like right below, 1,200 feet to the ground, this little carve out is for Somerton Airport. So there's a big circle, and in that circle on the very edge is Somerton underneath Class D. So the first time I flew there, you have to be really low because you can't, unless I had. Now, I didn't know this. The instructor at the time didn't tell me. I could just tell. I could have radioed to MCAS and said, hey, I'm putting around here in Somerton just to let you know I'm in your air. I might go into your airspace. And they're like, okay. They just have to say, okay, they're aware of me now. They can see me. They know where I'm at. They can see me putting along. But you're supposed to get permission from them. And I didn't know that at the time, and he didn't tell me. So this is my first time in the Somerton, and I'm so nervous.
Some of these planes have, maybe live rounds on them, and you got this little plane that's unannounced.
Yeah, they're not going to shoot me down.
Oh, okay.
They're going to report me to the FAA, and then, blackball me. I won't get my license forever. That actually happened too. But that was an accident.
Okay.
I didn't get... Going back to this one, I was low and slow coming into Somerton, and that's a very bad combo because you're so low and you're so slow. At a moment's notice, you can drop out of the sky, and you're so close to the ground you can't recover. And there's, on most of these little aircraft, there's a little hole in the wing. It's called your stall horn, and so it's designed to, at a certain angle, start alarming you that, hey, you're going into a stall.
Because these planes are literally made in the 60s, so it's like yeah, it's not all.
It's very rudimentary. I mean, it's not mechanical at any. Well, I guess it is mechanical in the sense that there's a little tab flap in there.
These high-tech digital devices.
No, but it works. So
it's like a hole in the plane that you get a certain angle, it's going to start buzzing.
It's like a whistle.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it doesn't buzz. It goes and it gets louder and louder the more you're going into that bad angle until you're falling. Like you can't recover from that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that started happening when I was coming into Somerton the first time, and he's like, I have the controls. And that was the first time that he had done that with a sense of urgency. He'd done it before, but not with that much urgency. And I'm like, hey, you got the controls, And he's like, you have to be. And then he's kind of chastising me, I'm like, okay, Dad, jeez. but then I get down, and then
what's the worst that could happen?
Yeah, as I reflected on it, I'm so ignorant.
Overreactor much?
Yeah, I'm so ignorant. That it wasn't until later, okay, I get down, and then on the ground, and then we're done with the lesson and stuff, and we're just re-going over it. He wasn't really, it was just stern, it was really stern and not messing around kind of voice, serious voice. And so as we're going over it, probably in his 70s, 60s or 70s.
It's easier to take chastisement from somebody that's older like that.
This guy, he's done it all. He's been in the airlines for decades. Military pilot. So whatever he says, I'm going to do because he knows what he's doing. And so anyway, after this, I'm reflecting on, and I'm going back, replaying in my mind and the situation. I'm like, okay, we could have died right there. That was a really serious situation, and I was oblivious to it. So that was one time where he said, I have controls.
Nice. Well, we're talking about following your passion and also providing for your family and making a living. And Adam, you sent me a YouTube clip, and it was really enlightening, not in the sense that I didn't know the things that they were talking about, but more of it just helps you reaffirm to stay the course, that there's not any get-rich-quick scheme out there. There are so many on the internet that, for example, I saw one last night that this guy was some very wealthy person, and I'm supposed to know his name, but I don't. He doesn't even mention his name, so because he thinks he's so important and wealthy. But he says, "Yeah, I was given a challenge to put away all my money, all my millions of dollars, land in a place that nobody knew me. I couldn't reach out to my contacts, and in 90 days, see if I could make $1 million, right? And he goes, in 90 days, I didn't make $1 million. I made $5 million. Huh. And he goes, if you want to know, click and enroll in my course. And that's a scam, all right? Those are all telltale signs of a scam. But so many people, those are very popular out there on the internet. The podcast that you sent me was from Chris Williamson, and he was interviewing Scott Galloway. And Scott Galloway talks about it's the fundamentals. Don't invest more than 3% in any one aspect of the market or in any one investment scenario.
Oh, he was saying you're saying diversify.
Diversify,
because he put all of his eggs in one basket
in his own company at one point.
Well, he said, if I remember correctly, he said, I've been rich 3 times. And so he learned every one of those times, but he lost it,
Yeah.
And then he had to build it back up. So every one of those times he learned lessons.
He had a $10 million net worth in his own company, and that was stock that his company was worth. And he said, hey, I want to leverage my stock. How do I do that? And they said, well, we'll give you, and he's talking to lenders, $3 million to leverage your stock. And what do you want to do with that? And he goes, I want to buy more stock. And so he bought more. And then his company went down. And now not only was he bankrupt, he was $3 million in debt.
And he owed tax-wise because you have to pay taxes on all that.
Yeah, that forgiven debt. And so he was like, that was terrible. So he learned that by diversifying, he called it your investment Teflar. He goes, there was this company that I'd never been more excited for. It was this some type of health investment, probably pharmaceutical, and he had to elbow and shove his way and smooth people to get in just to invest in this startup company, and he was sure that it was going to be big. And so he invested in that, and a year later it went bankrupt. And he's like, that's how it goes. The things that you're most certain about in investments, they go down. And then he's like, NVIDIA. I had some stock in NVIDIA, and if I was smart, or if I could see into the future, had a crystal ball, I would have invested a lot more in NVIDIA because it's gone up by like 1,200%. And I didn't. But the peace of mind that I have that if NVIDIA takes a dive, which it could, or any other company, and I'm only losing that 3%, is worth it to me every day. And so I do still invest in companies that are startups and are pie in the sky. Maybe we'll make it big, but maybe they won't. And 3%, when that company tanks, I have a bad afternoon, but I wake up fresh the next morning and I don't give it another thought, because it's like the Teflon. You're putting on that bulletproof vest. It hits you in the chest. It hurts, right? But you've protected yourself. You get back up, dust yourself off. It hasn't killed you. We
got to go to break. This is Life, Death, and Law. We'll come back talking about pursuing your passion, Tom. Pursuing your passion, okay?
Excellent.
This is Life, Death, and Law. Yes. We'll be right back.
Coming up, more thought-provoking conversations on life, death, and the law right after this.
Don't miss out. Deason, Garner, and Hansen is presenting a live seminar Friday, August 9th at the Foothills Library at 2:30. I know there's nowhere else you'd want to be than our seminar, so 2:30 p.m. at the Foothills Library.
You're listening to Life, Death, and the Law, presented by Deason, Garner, and Hansen, the law firm that has been voted Yuma's best 6 years in a row.
Welcome back to Life, Death, and the Law. We're talking about pursuing your passion and also being able to provide for your family and secure yourself economically. The general advice out there, the sound advice out there is don't pursue your passion. Do what it takes to provide for yourself, be financially secure, provide for your family, and then do some hobbies, do things that you enjoy, and those are your passions. But pursuing your passion is not going to translate most of the time into economic security. And so Scott Galloway is really good at putting this into perspective. For example, he talks about what is wealth and how do you acquire it. So he gives two different examples. For a friend of his that makes between $3 million on a good year and $3 million on a bad year and $14 million on a good year. He is an investment broker, and he spends it on a big house. He spends it on, first class trips around the world and fancy cars, and really doesn't save very much of it. And so he's stressed out all the time. His family feels that stress. His wife feels that stress. And he is not wealthy in Scott Galloway's mind because he's constantly stressing out about money. And then he compares it to his dad, who owns a dozen washing machines and is basically retired and living off of his Royal Navy pension. And he makes about $50,000 a year collecting coins out of these washing machines, loves it, enjoys the process of going through and collecting those coins. He makes $50,000 in that passive income from those washing machines, but his expenditures are about $48,000. And so he is totally set. He goes to sleep and sleeps like a baby. He wakes up, has peace of mind, and he is economically secure. So he, in that sense, is wealthy. And that is the mindset that I think a lot of us miss. We see the fancy cars. We see the extravagant vacations and the big houses, and we equate that to wealth. We don't see the stress, the 60-hour work weeks, the mortgages that go along with that, and understand that that is not wealth. That's signaling to the world your insecurities, that you need to show them that you have something that perhaps you don't, and that is security. Now, maybe there are some that are truly wealthy, and that's just a spin-off of some passive income that they have, but most of the time not. Most of these big jacked up 4x4s you see driving around town probably are more expensive than the homes that they live in and or park in front of, and that is going to prevent them from any type of economic security, because every spare dollar and the dollars that they don't have, the dollars that they're borrowing, are going into those vehicles. What's your comment on that, Adam?
I liked how later on in that interview, Scott Galloway, he's a professor at NYU, and if you listen to him, I mean, he's got some really sound advice, and it kind of goes against the grain, because what we typically hear is that, you got to follow your passion. Mm-hmm. You need to find something.
Especially at NYU.
Yeah, you got to find something that, when you go to work, you're not going to work, you're going because you love it, and it's not work to you because you love it so much. Okay, that's to me, that might be true. Maybe you can find that, but I really doubt it. What Scott Galloway was saying, and it goes against the grain, is that your main job should be the driver or the catalyst of building your wealth. And he goes on to say that he hates side hustles, and the reason why is because you're usually side hustles are just exploratory. You're looking for different things because you're not satisfied with your main thing. But your main thing, really what you ought to do is focus your energy on that and be the best at it that you can be. If you're in the top 10 or the top 1% of that particular thing that you're doing, your main thing, then you're going to dominate, and you're going to find eventually enjoyment in that, because you are one of the best in what you're doing, and you'll be very successful at that. And he goes on and he argues that the more energy you put into that main hustle that you're doing will pay more dividends in the end than all these little side hustles you're trying to do to bring in more wealth. If you just focus more energy on your main thing, that will be more beneficial to you, and it opens up more avenues for these side hustle exploratory things that you can do. Like Shawn was saying, this little podcast that we do, we don't expect to be as big as Joe Rogan or Howard Stern or something. That's not our goal here. It's just
Howard Stern, really? That's the one you choose to equate us to?
The king of satellite radio.
All right.
You, yeah, specifically.
Yeah.
You sicko. No, I mean, the idea is that we started doing this because we wanted to have our voice in the community as to political issues that were happening. We started doing it before the pandemic, a few years before the pandemic, but the pandemic really allowed us to get our voice out there as to government intervention and the abuses of government power.
Yeah, really, it was to advertise seminars.
Yeah, it really was.
It was just as basically advertisement on a different platform. We advertised, when we started this, we were advertising primarily in the newspaper. This was back in 2013. And we've been doing this for over 10 years. So we advertised on the newspaper. We advertised by sending out mailers. The mailers we were printing, hand folding, putting in envelopes, and sticking them or taking them to the post office. And so we thought, well, we want to get on different areas and get our name out there so people will attend our seminars and see what we do to support our main source of income. And now it's become a hobby that we really enjoy, and we talk a little bit about estate planning. We try to plug it a little bit here and there, but mainly we talk about topics that are important to us or we feel that will help the community. We bring up issues that are overlooked by the mainstream media, left or right, or the podcasters out there that we think are important.
I get concerned about the reason why this topic really hit me is because I think of I have two older sons, one's 17, one is 15, and I worry about them going into the workforce and thinking that when I talk to them, a lot of times I get the impression that they like my older son, he says, well, I want to be an entrepreneur, and I'm not quite sure what that means. I don't know if I get the impression that he's going to have all these little side hustles, but no main thing.
Yeah.
And what I want him to understand, or if I could talk to him, I can talk to him anytime, I guess. I guess I ought to as a father.
If you could get him to listen.
If I could get him to listen, I would say, put your nose to the grindstone, work hard. You're not going to find something overnight. These entrepreneurial things that will come because of your main hustle. So focus on that main hustle. That will allow you to explore other side hustles. But really, you got to focus on something. Get a degree, go out into the workforce, and do something really, really well and be the best at that. And then that will open up all these other exploratory side hustles, if you will. But I think we as Americans, innately, what makes us American is the attitude that we have within us this power to do whatever we want and be the best if we really apply ourselves. And that's uniquely American. And in this same interview, the same guy that was giving that interview, he's English, Shawn. Yeah. What's his name?
Chris Williamson.
There's another video that he's talking with one of his UK buddies, and they're talking about the differences between Americans and Brits, yeah. And they mentioned this, is that Americans are just optimistic. Like we're naturally optimistic, most of us, in general. And that's a generalization, but most of us are very optimistic. And they contrasted that with them in the UK, saying like, if you go to dinner, they gave this example. In the United States, when they come to the United States and they hang out with their American buddies, they go to the bar or whatever, everybody introduces them and they say all these nice things about them. And they really like set the floor, roll out the red carpet, like this is so-and-so and he does this and that, And they're like, if you come to the UK and you go to the bar with us, you bring your American buddy, like you're gonna stand out because of your accent, number one, and we think it's a cool accent. But at the same time, they're going to say everything you've ever done wrong, like the worst things you've ever done. Like that's how they started out. Uh-huh. So it's just a different mindset. And I think that's a testament to the American dream, or our Constitution really has built that in, that optimism that our founders had to create this experimental nation.
Pursuit of happiness.
That's right. And it really comes from freedom. So I'm worried about our freedoms being limited by government. And that's really what I like to talk about when we talk about this hobby of ours, our podcast, is the government overreaching so much so that we say that we're a free nation, but in reality, I don't know how free we are when you can't, own this, that, or the other, or you have to get licenses to do this, that, or like to fly an airplane. Give me a break.
No, I tend to agree with that one.
Don't tread on me. That's what I say.
That's right. Don't tread on me.
Yeah. I think growing up, I can identify a little bit with what your son's thinking about. I want to be an entrepreneur. I think when young people see that, they see the benefits of entrepreneurship. Like, I don't have a boss. I get to be my own boss. I set my own hours. I make as much money as I can put in, right? And I had an uncle who's an orthodontist, and I wanted to be an orthodontist when I was, getting to the latter years of high school, because I saw he didn't work on Fridays. He owned his own practice. He had a lot of money, and that was great. But I couldn't comprehend all of the work he put in to get to that point, and all of the risk he took to get to that point, starting his own practice. And so there are some lessons to be learned, but I think the overarching principle that I see is, if you turn your passion into something that you do for work, it's the fastest way to lose that passion. Where
that's interesting concept there.
Yes,
if you have to do it, how fun is it?
Yeah, it's not going to be a hobby very much longer, I don't think. I set one of my favorite songs to my alarm in the morning, and it took about 3 weeks for me to hate that song. And I think that's about this. It's like the same thing.
Mentality, yeah.
Yeah, I associate that with waking up in the morning and, coming to work, even though I love working here. Let's not get the wrong idea.
Yeah.
But, no one wants
Tread
to wake
lightly,
up early,
Thomas.
right? You don't want to wake up early and, have to, lose hours of sleep that you could, if you wanted to sleep in. And that song is what I think of every time I wake up now. I don't like it.
What is it? Tremoli, or what is it called? The Marine Corps.
Oh, the Marines hymn? Oh, Reveille?
Reveille.
No, it's not Reveille.
Oh.
That gives me PTSD. That doesn't.
We were just talking a few days ago, and I was like, oh, you could. What do they say in the Marine Corps when they get you up? It's like lights.
Oh yeah, lights. They'll yell that. Yeah.
I said you could program your Alexa to do that, get you out of bed. I thought that would be a good thing, and you're like, no, that made me freak out.
Yeah, it'd wake me up. That's for sure.
All right.
I think we got to take a break. We'll be back in a moment.
Coming up, more thought-provoking conversations on life, death, and the law right after this.
Don't miss out. Deason, Garner, and Hansen is hosting a live estate planning seminar at the Foothills Library Friday, August 9th at 2:30.
You're listening to Life, Death, and the Law, presented by Deason, Garner, and Hansen, the law firm that has been voted Yuma's best 6 years in a row.
Welcome back to Life, Death, and Law. I'm attorney Adam Hansen. We've got Shawn Garner with us. We've got Tom Sparks and Cody Beeson. Right before the break, Tom was making the astute observation, I would say, that when you make your passion your job, you quickly lose your passion for that passion. Is that
nice?
How you would say that?
That's how I would say it. Yeah.
Cody is our resident comedian.
Oh, mercy.
And
Yeah.
he said, what did you say?
Oh, well, exactly that. Like, because I set up the LLC to handle all the comedy stuff. So now we're selling tickets and we're doing stuff. It's not as fun as just going and doing comedy.
Yeah.
Like all the other people that get to do it. When you have deadlines and money involved, it's just not as fun. But I thought about the story, like when I first met Shawn. You were practicing law, and then you've had this, and it's part of, your story here is, look, I didn't like the other type of law. I like estate planning. Like, I don't like going into the fight of the courtroom. I don't know if that's what you said or I'm putting words in your mouth.
No, that's it.
But at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, if you like what you do and you enjoy it, you never work a day in your life.
I don't like uncertainty.
Yeah.
And I don't like animosity. So in the law, there's a lot of both of those. You are assigned to defend or to zealously represent your client, and so you look for all of the good points of their position and all of the negative points of the opposing party, and so you're constantly trying to attack, and that gave me ulcers. And it wasn't fun. Some people, they may be able to do that and thrive off of it, but I don't think there's very many. I think that's the reason why most attorneys, or not most attorneys, but the highest level of abuse for careers is attorneys.
I was going to say, mentally, it does something to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they need to go and they need to, like, decompress, and so they go to the bar or they go and, use other types of drugs and decompress with that. And if that is your lifestyle, then that's not a very healthy lifestyle. So what I wanted to get into was something that was predictable, that I could use the skills that I have of analyzing a situation, putting pieces together, and and fixing problems if there were, or anticipating where problems may arise and avoiding them, and still be able to make an income off of that as an attorney. When I got out of law school for the first 3 years, I didn't know if that was possible because of all the series that I watched on TV of what attorneys do. You know, they glorify this courtroom battle. And it wasn't glorious at all. It was super duper stressful. And so I would pace the streets at 1, 2 in the morning, you know, going through, should I make this argument? Should I do that argument? Are they going to come up with some surprise motion that I've missed a deadline for a certain, you know, procedural requirement, and it's going to kill my case? And all of those things would keep me awake at night, and I would dread opening my email for fear of finding that I've missed some little nuance in the law and get disbarred or sued for malpractice. What I do now is we look at the long run. We say, okay, everybody's going to die. What do you want to do? What is your legacy? What's important to you? Let's focus on those things, and it helps people come back to earth about what has made them happy along life. So it helps me reflect on my own life at the same time, and we see teachers who are financially very well off and are leaving a good legacy to their children. And we also see doctors and other attorneys or other professionals that make a very high annual income but have very little to show for it because their spending habits are out of control. And so it helps me see all these different aspects and try to incorporate into my life what is going to make my family both financially stable and well-rounded. It's all about the balance. And so, and that's a shout out to my son-in-law who said you can throw it's all about the balance in any phrase and it'll always work.
There you go.
It's all about the balance.
Yeah, and so this is balance. What we do in estate planning is we balance. There are trade-offs in everything, and we balance our legal expertise with the ability to help people achieve peace of mind.
Absolutely, well said. And I think we get hung up on that you need to, like going back to you got to be passionate about what you do. I think to a certain extent, but if you're really serious about being good at what you do, you're not really worried that it's your passion. You're worried about how well you're doing at that particular thing, if that makes any sense. So in our case, we want to be the best at what we do, and we spend a lot of time improving our systems, coming up with new technology, coming up with new ways of doing things and new systems that will help our staff. So
give us an example of new technology, because you're the one that is leading the charge on that. So what's your newest pet project? I think it's a really cool thing. I don't really understand it, but tell us about Donna.
Well, I think you and you're really good about, Shawn is one to read every book he can get his hands on when it comes to improving oneself. And so he'll read these books and he'll tell me concepts so I don't have to read the books. It's fantastic. It's like my own Cliff Notes.
Yeah, Cliff Notes.
Yeah. And so we will often say, okay, well, let's try and implement that in our systems or in our firm. And so having said that, he's really good about bringing in these new concepts and let's try these out in the business scenario and see if they work. If they don't work, we ditch it, kind of thing. And to that end, some of these things are psychological. So, for example, studies show that when I have a little bit more say in the outcome of how my life is going, that I'm going to be happier with that because I made a choice. I might choose poorly, but I'm still going to be, psychologically, I'm still going to be happy with that choice because I made the choice.
You might make less income as a result of that choice, but I think your overall satisfaction is greater.
So I say that because we try to do that in our systems as well. We want our clients to be able to be in the driver's seat. I think the old guard, the way that you would do estate planning is you'd come in, you would meet with the attorney. It's kind of like, scary, nerve-wracking. You don't know what's going on, and you talk to that attorney about what you want to happen, and they tell you what you're going to do. They write some stuff down on a piece of paper, and then say, okay, we'll get back together in about a month or two, and we'll have all your paperwork ready for you. And then it goes into this black hole. You don't hear anything from that attorney, and then you show up in a month or two, and you sign this paperwork that they put together for you. And a lot of times that paperwork's probably wrong. It might have misspellings. It might have wrong addresses. It might not even do what you want it to do.
Or even if that is all correct, it's generic.
It's very generic. And so when a person goes through that experience, they get jaded, or they get, that perpetuates the idea that attorneys are bad. And that I think that's the common sentiment in the community, is that attorneys are, out to get you, or they're just money hungry, or that kind of stuff. They're sleazeballs kind of thing, and that just perpetuates that. We don't want that to happen to our clients. We want them to be in the driver's seat. So everything we've done with our systems is to do that, is to allow our clients drive what their reality is going to be and how their planning is going to work. We will make suggestions, and we'll offer our suggestions. We'll recommend certain things, but ultimately the client is the one in charge, and we want them to feel that. So going back to your question, we've worked really hard in allowing a system where the client fills out their information on their own, and they provide us with their information, and they're doing all their stuff they're setting their own appointments. They're making the decisions, and they're driving the actual experience. And because of that, I feel like our clients are much happier than most estate planning clients that go to other firms, because they're in the driver's seat, and that psychologically makes them feel better about what they're doing, because they feel like, okay, I'm in control here, and I've got some help along the way, because I don't know everything about what's going on. That's what Adam's for. That's what Shawn's for, Tom, and they're going to guide me through this process. But they're still in control.
The important component is to have systems in place where they don't get analysis paralysis. They have one decision to make at a time. And once they've made that decision, then it makes the next decision not only apparent, but clear as to what it should be. So the next question that should be asked automatically materializes. Okay, if you want to make sure that your house is going to go to so-and-so, how are we going to make that happen, and how is it going to be sustainable for them? Okay, that's the next question. Fine, now it's sustainable for them. What happens when they die? That's the next question. So each of those questions are organic, and they work off of one another, but it's the person's plan very particularly and specifically. It's just us putting together a system that will facilitate that discussion.
Absolutely. And by the end of it all, oftentimes what they'll say is, oh, that was a lot easier than I thought.
Yeah.
Yes, because we made it that way. But in reality, back behind the scenes, it's incredibly complex. But because of our experience in this area, we're going through mental gymnastics making this stuff happen for the client, and we present it in a very simple, easy, logical way to them. But in the background, there's a lot going on, and it's a lot, so much so that it's like we can't go through all of it with you because it's so complex. But we're going to make it happen. We're going to make what you want to happen. That's our job, is to put that all in place, kind of like building a house.
Yeah.
I'm not going to question the framers or the sheetrockers when I'm building the house. I'm going to expect them to go by the plan that's on there. But they know all these little tricks of the trade to make that sheetrock look exactly right and get that framing exactly the way it needs to be. And that's because over the years of experience, these tradesmen, they've learned these things, and they've come up with these ideas and tested things and come up with, okay, that works, that doesn't work, so we're going to do it this way. I don't question that. I just know that my wall is going to be a solid wall. It's going to look fantastic, and it's exactly how it was supposed to be in the planning.
See, and that brings up a interesting experience that I had, because I'm a do-it-yourselfer on a lot of those things. At least I used to be. Now I start to delegate more because I'm wising up, and I understand that I can't do something as good as a professional that I pay to do it, even if I work really hard, unless I dedicate all my time to it. For example, I wanted to finish my own basement. And this was when I was in undergrad, and so I was trying to pinch pennies. So I finished the basement with literally a claw hammer, a drill, and a skill saw. That's what I had, because I didn't want to go out and spend the money on the tools that were appropriate for it. And the drywall was a big issue. And you mentioning drywall there, because I would get the drywall and I would measure it out, and I'd cut it and I'd put it on the framing, and then I would see that there was some waste, and so I would find every little piece of waste that I could use, and I would piece it together. And so when my basement was drywalled up, I mean, it looked like a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle. It had every little piece, and there was very little waste. And I was so proud of how I was able to minimize the waste. And then I started mudding it, and that is a real skill to make it look smooth. And it was taking me forever. I was mudding it, I was sanding it, I was mudding it again. So finally, I reached out to a contractor that would do that, and he came in and looked at it, and I said, how much to finish this? And he goes, well, normally it's like X amount per square foot. And I go, okay, so are you going to cut me a deal, or what? Why are you saying normally? And he goes, well, I can't do yours. And I go, why not? He goes, there are so many lines everywhere that it's going to be 10 times the amount that I would normally charge. And I was like, well, I wanted to use all the scraps and I didn't want to waste it. And he goes, yeah, but there are so many lines. You can't afford me to do this, and I couldn't afford to do it for anything else less than 10 times what I normally do it for. That was a good learning experience. That common sense, from my limited knowledge, falls far short of the common sense of an expert. Having heard that, my experience, Cody, with the drywall and the construction of the basement, interesting thing about that is I did finish my basement. I put way more work and money into it than was necessary, but I did get it finished, and that's one thing that speaks to my character is I don't give up. I will persevere to the end, and I'll work till 3 o'clock in the morning until it's done. And so I had a lot of sleepless nights getting that done, but afterwards it was done, and it looked fairly, professional. My brother asked me to finish his basement. Very first thing I did, went to Home Depot, bought the best tools, and we got that job done in 3 weeks compared to the 3 months that it took for my basement. Have you ever experienced something like that, Cody?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think the phrase is what? The cheaper way will cost you more.
Yeah.
Right? So you go back and you figure it out. I was wondering, though, knowing how you built your house and everything, would you pull your own wire again? Or would you outsource that?
I probably would.
Okay.
Because I have great resources here. Like Adam is wonderful for IT. My brother is very good at kind of seeing the big picture of what you need for an intercom, what you want to have for Cat 5 lines, and we pull all of that. And that isn't something that, at least in the Yuma area. So when you're saying pull your own wire, it's all IT wire.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so I have a IT room in my house, and we pulled probably, 50 wires into that. And Adam helped me with setting up the security cameras. He's helped me a lot with setting up the internet. So we've got, good internet fast throughout the house. There's no dead spots. And I just happen to be surrounded by people that are very knowledgeable about that area, and they were willing to contribute with that. But would I frame or drywall again? No.
So you just need friends that are in the framing and drywalling industry.
Well, that
Certainly helps.
Yeah.
No, I just hire the professionals on that. Yeah. What about you? Like you've had some adventures. I know that you wanted to make a bus into an RV.
Yeah, still working on that. And it kind of goes to like your hobbies, right? Like that was my hobby, and then I found comedy, and I started devoting all my time and like money into the comedy thing, and like started a business out of it. But like we said, a side hustle isn't a business. It's a extra entity to do taxes on at the end of the year, but I'm not generating revenue off of that. But then,
So how's your bus going?
we use it to camp like once or twice a year.
Oh, so it's a reality.
Yeah. I mean, it's like a giant truck that we take camping.
That's awesome.
That's it, But other than that, yeah, you should have like a solid, place where you make your money, and then your side hustle can just be whatever.
Yeah, Thomas, I want to hear where your learning curve, where you found out, I sorely underestimated this project.
That undergrad, I bought a 1978 Gorelli moped. This was a pedal start moped. Like we're talking, you had to pedal it to like kick the engine over, and then once the engine caught on, it could go, 20 miles an
real
hour.
chick magnet.
Yeah, totally. Luckily, I was married before I got the moped. So I don't know if it would have happened if I would have waited. But it was, it was old. It had like all the original parts on it, and I thought, oh, I'll get this for cheap. I'll put a couple parts on it, and it'll be way cheaper than buying like a new scooter. Because I wanted one I could ride in the bike lane, because I live pretty close to campus, right?
Was this in Spokane?
This was in Tucson.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I went to the U of A at the time. Yeah, so I looked at the law and I said, oh, pedal starts technically are bicycles. They can ride in the bike lane as long as you don't speed, because you can get a speeding ticket in the bike lane.
Yes, 25 miles per hour.
Yeah, that's the max. So, and they'll gun you. They will.
Don't ask me how I know that.
Yeah. So, but, very similar to, I think, your guys' stories, is that I grossly underestimated how much money and how many parts it was going to take to revive this bike to bring it up into modern day. And at the end of it, I was probably twice the value of what I would have spent if I would have just bought a modern scooter. But I think the silver lining was it looked pretty cool at the end. And that was the mentality I had to have, is I had to treat it like a hobby and not really care that it was actually like the most
and understand it's a
effective.
learning experience. I mean, you
Yeah,
probably learn a lot about mechanics and where to get spare parts and things like that. So you're able to fix things in the future or determine whether or not the cost ratio is worth it in the future.
Yeah.
And those experiences, I think, are extremely valuable. Bringing it back to where we make money, estate planning isn't one of those things that you can dabble with and learn from experience, because when you need it to work, you're dead or incapacitated, and your family is now stuck holding the bag. So if you need a proper estate plan, don't do the DIY process. Come to somebody that's done a couple thousand of them, has seen what works, what does not. In theory, some things sound great. In practice, they're very different, and we will help understand where those two roads can converge. So attend our seminar live. We're at the Foothills Library once a month. 2:30 p.m. is generally our time. This month it's going to be August 9th. Or go online and you can watch it in your PJs at midnight, and you can understand what estate planning is all about, what it should look like. That's all the time that we have for today. This is Life, Death, and the Law.
If you have questions or want to know more about something that was discussed today, please call the law firm of Deason, Garner, and Hansen at 928-783-4575 or visit yumaestateplanning.com.
Don't miss out. Deason, Garner, and Hansen is presenting a live seminar Friday, August 9th at the Foothills Library at 2:30. I know there's nowhere else you'd want to be than our seminar, so 2:30 p.m. at the Foothills Library.